Busy old show today, Nathan.
Indeed.
Now, our first guest, though, is currently starring in a show less about the ugliest pilgrim and more about the ugliest chandelier-wielding opera singer obsessive. He's a bit of a stalker. Not our next guest, but we might find that out in a minute. Now, in its 33rd glorious year, The Phantom of the Opera continues to mesmerise and enchant audiences at Her Majesty's Theatre London and around the globe. Winner of 70 major theatre awards, Andrew Lloyd Webber's epic masterpiece has been seen by more than 140 million people worldwide. Here to tell us more about the world within the Paris Opera House is one of the stars of the show, Mr. Jeremy Taylor. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Curtain Up Show.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
When the show opened in 1986, were you born?
I was. Yeah.
Just
I was
maybe. I'm
yeah.
thinking.
I was less. I would have been less than, or just turning one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
which
that
is weird, isn't it?
Is that a weird sensation?
Yeah, it is. I keep there's times when I sort of run through my life, like early life, that feels a long time ago, and I'm thinking, God, Phantom was going at that point.
Yeah.
And in fact, we've got a cast member still who joined, I think, in 1990, Philip Griffiths, and
the legend that is.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird to think he was there as well when I was like 5 or something, or 6 or so.
And there was a cellist, I think. I don't know if he's still in the orchestra.
Is
called
that Bob?
Yeah.
Is that Bob? Yeah.
Is he still there? I think he's been there till day one, since day one.
Yeah, Bob's still there.
And
He's still going strong.
And at one point we calculated he took an average of 3 days off a year. That's
wow.
Unbelievable.
God.
But
I can't match that.
I guess that's a testament to the show because it's really one quite unlike any other in the West End.
I
It's
think
got
so.
A massive orchestra, huge set, soaring ballads, amazing music.
Yeah, the only other show I can think to compare it to, obviously, is Les Mis.
Yeah.
But Les Mis has changed a lot over the years, hasn't it? I mean, I was lucky enough to see it at the Palace, and I still remember it to this day. But obviously, they had to move it and do a bit of changes with the orchestra and do a bit of change with the staging. And although it's still a great show, Phantom's still got it's still there in its original form.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, nothing really has changed. The odd little health and safety thing that has to happen over the decades, not that much, but a few things like that. But it's still
well.
the same
Once we
there.
leave the EU, it'd be everything fine. There'd
Well,
be lots of other changes.
I know. I'm looking forward to it.
What you want with it now? There'd be no health and safety.
2 months left of health and safety, so I'm going to take out health insurance in the meantime, just in case.
Because you do some amazing. It's weird if you watch the show, you kind of just automatically assume there's loads of technology being thrown at it to do all these amazing tricks and illusions. But there really isn't.
No.
Like I don't want to give too much away, but there is a point at which you jump off a bridge and dive into a lake, effectively.
Yeah,
just giving it away, Nathan.
That's kind of giving it away, isn't it?
It's giving it away, but it's all right. It's not a big giveaway.
No.
But you're doing it. It's not like a video.
Yeah.
It's real.
Do you know what's funny about that is that actually I'm still getting over an injury, so that's been a bit of a tricky time for me, that jump. But that is still part of the Raoul track, and it's quite a sort of it's a big stunt for kind of what is essentially quite a short moment in the show.
Yeah.
But they still keep those things in, which is quite good. It's all the bases, not like I guess like Harry Potter, where they've got all these really exciting new modern cutting edge illusions. They don't have that at Phantom, but it still has the effect from the audience.
It does, and I remember because when I was training at the Mount View, I worked front of house on Phantom for 2.5 years, so I know the show really well.
Yeah.
And there was points of the show that I knew the audience always reacted, and it was that moment because also there's the dry ice on the stage as well.
Yeah, the dry ice that covers a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That ticks a lot of boxes. Yeah.
So when that happened, it was a real the audience would go because you just sort of jump and disappear.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you play Raoul.
That's it.
Now, those people have not seen The Phantom of the Opera because there's a lot of people probably in the world that still haven't.
Really?
Yeah.
Only a few.
No,
Antarctica hasn't seen it yet.
No, but do you know what I mean? Tell us a little bit about Raoul. Who is he?
Okay,
What's
so
he does?
Raoul
what
is
star sign is he?
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Probably the first time you've been asked that.
Yeah.
That is oh God, I'm going to pluck something out of nowhere for that. But
Leo.
funny.
I see him as a Leo.
I'm
maybe.
not a big star sign person, so I
Maybe
don't
not,
know
so
the
you don't
differences
know.
between them.
Yeah.
So I probably couldn't assign that to him. But I'll go with Virgo for now because that's mine.
Right.
So Raoul is a rich, young. I would say that.
Well, you are quite young.
I'm 33.
That's young.
But I think Raoul's supposed to be probably I would say I've always thought late 20s, but a lot of people think early 20s. I tend to think he's a little bit older. But it's open to interpretation. But Raoul is the sort of young, rich socialite, perhaps, who's from a good family, who really sort of enjoys the theatre scene, I've always thought, and has kind of got himself involved and is essentially the producer, the funder, the big guy on top who sort of comes into theatre and goes, oh, I'll put all my money into this and I'll be the big star and all that kind of thing. And he, not realising that this is something that takes him completely by surprise, as he recognises one of the people who is performing in the show, which obviously Christine, and they know each other from childhood, and it suddenly kind of that's, do you know what, it's mentioning that actually that's the two parts of the personality is his new self, the rich young kind of entrepreneurial type, socialite person, but then there's also the childlike him, which seeing Christine sparks off. So you got these two little personalities.
It sort of pulls him immediately back to those sort of happy times.
Exactly.
Where, that time of innocence when they were sort of childhood sweethearts.
Exactly. That's it basically.
And then he falls
in love straight away with her in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's true, isn't it? You do. I think you do. That's real life, isn't it? You do fall in love with someone straight away.
I think so.
Do you?
Yeah.
But then there's somebody else in the opera that also has eyes for Christine.
Yeah, he does. And they've been getting to know each other before Raoul turns up. So he's got a bit of a battle on his hands. This guy, the Phantom's passionate, and he's kind of weirdly romantic. Yeah. And he likes music, and he's, Raoul's into music, but he's more into the kind of enjoying it sort of thing.
He's fond of boats.
He loves the boats. He loves the dry ice.
He's got his own boat.
He loves dry ice, which is lucky because there's lots of that in this production.
I mean, it's got its own dungeon.
Yeah, he's got a dungeon.
Oh, there, as they say.
And that whole sequence, which is the title song of the show, has to be one of the most iconic sequences in musical theatre. It's full stop. Not even just of like the 20th century, just full stop. It's brilliant. Stunning.
I like I'm just part of it in the show. So I come in, I sort of burst into the dressing room, and she goes off into the mirror into his lair, and then I yell Christine, all that kind of thing, and then the music kicks in, and I just hear it, and that's so good every night to hear that music. I don't get the full force of it, which the audience get, because obviously we hear it slightly differently on stage, but you still get that thing, and I do. And there's a little string section just after that, which I always pick out, and it does. It sounds really cheesy, but it does give you little shivers because the chords and it's amazing.
There's that, and also what I always loved about it is that opening sequence when they're all doing the auction. And then when it goes, maybe with a bit of illumination, gentlemen. Yeah. And that first bit, when that whole sequence going into Carlotta coming out with the head. I remember, even seeing the show work in front of house, that was always just like, you would always get those goosebump music, that how music affects you.
Oh, yeah, the organ sound, and it's so strong. It's not just a cute melody, or they have, ballads.
And also, I used to love as well the Masquerade number at Copyright 2. That was just always one of my. I used to sometimes, because you used to have to sometimes watch the show, and sometimes I would sneak in. Yeah, when I wasn't supposed to watch
really,
the parts.
Just to watch that. It has to have the impact from the front. I ask it just because, on stage it's weird. I don't know, audience sometimes realise this, but because when you're part of a show, you don't always you kind of feel you do feel it, but you don't feel it in the way the audience feel that end result. Yeah. So it's always interesting for me to hear what bits impact the most.
And it's bizarre with Masquerade because there's this gigantic staircase with people on it, and with all the massive these huge cloths that have come in, because it's beautiful, and it really looks like the Paris Opera House. Yeah, there's actually with all the cast on stage, there's very little space left for you doing the sort of big dance routine in the show. Almost
the cast on the stairs get it the worst. They have these I mean, they're not tiny, but when you're looking up, which you have to, you can't just look down at your feet all the time as you're dancing. They're looking up, and they've got to negotiate these stairs whilst singing, whilst doing their moves. It's quite tricky, and there's it's a very busy place to be, and they do very well. I'm at the front, so I've got all this space, so I'm not.
Why do you think? Obviously, and also Phantom just celebrated its birthday on Broadway last weekend as well, and is now the longest running musical on Broadway. Why? What do you think it is about Phantom that is so special for people? Because people go and see it again and again and again.
Yeah, I mean, you can't discredit the music. And in a sense, you can't sometimes you can't explain why music is so good. It just is. Sometimes it just hits you or it doesn't. And I feel like the music in Phantom just hits people. For me, it's always it hits me. The chords. I'm more of a. I respond more to music and melody and stuff, and it has that. I feel. I don't know, people say this sometimes about it, but it's a darker show. It's one of the darker shows I've done.
Yeah.
And I feel like that appeals to people in the musical theatre market, perhaps because it's less done, maybe. I know Sondheim experiments with that perhaps more than others, but in the kind of bigger commercial theatre productions, it's less done, perhaps.
I think also at that time, it was like the golden era of British musical theatre.
Yeah.
From like Cats, from Starlight, Phantom, Les Mis, obviously aspects of love. It was that real. There was a real sort of what the word I'm looking for? Insurgence? No, is that a word? No, resurgent? No, I'm making words up now.
I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a real because I remember being up north and reading, and they'd make the Sun newspaper. Stories of West End musical theatre, which just hadn't happened on that scale before. And obviously, you had Michael Crawford, who was, from Some Mothers Do Have Them, and Sarah Brightman, and I think it was just that. I think out of all those musicals like Cats and Starlight, I think Phantom's probably the one that most people, there is something within that. Yeah. Because it's about love, isn't it?
It's about love, yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what we all want. Don't we, Nathan Matthews?
Very true. And also one thing that I as I said to you before we came on air, I haven't seen the show for quite a while, but friends and family that do go and see it, one thing that I hear time and time again is how fresh it's kept. And a musical that's been running for as long as Phantom can die by this if they don't have that attention to detail and that care that they take. And everybody working on that show, it's having worked on a number of shows in town myself, it's unlike any other. It's a real sense of family in that building, and everybody does everything that they possibly can to keep it as beautiful as it was on the night it first opened.
Definitely. I've sensed that since I joined the show. As I mentioned earlier, we have people in the building who have been there, almost built entire careers just in that show, which is very unusual for the arts and entertainment. People are, the usual kind of the status quo for that kind of working in that sector is job to job to job to job to job. So that's something which I think contributes to that care, because people aren't just coming in and out. I have a theory about it as well, in the sense that, we're getting to a stage with these long shows now, apart from Mousetrap, but that's another story, is that they're kind of, they're written in the 80s, so there's an 80s, even though the music and the story is universal, maybe timeless, I feel like it's been around for such a long time now. There's a bit of sort of vintage retro appeal that's coming in. If it had ever gone out of fashion, I don't know. In the night, I didn't see it until I think I was 17, so that would have been the early noughties, maybe mid noughties. I wonder if there was ever a time when it started to slip out of fashion. It's now come back in as this sort of retro 80s type. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think things come back in culture, fashion, this, that, and the other, and maybe shows, I mean, it's never really lost out in terms of ticket sales and all that, but maybe it's going to have even more going forward now that,
I also think there's something that, because people like familiarity in a lot of ways as well, and I think it's one of those things, it'll be on forever. I can't ever see it closing.
No.
I hope it doesn't.
No, I don't think it'll close.
I have to
so
say,
in 20 years' time, you'll go back and you'll play Madame Jury?
That's the one I've got my eye on, yes.
First cover, Philip Griffiths.
Yeah, exactly. And that would be an honour.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for joining us on the show today. The Phantom of the Opera is at Her Majesty's Theatre. For more information, check out our Facebook page at
facebook.com/Curtain Up Show. And you can book tickets via Today Tix, which is, of course, the theatre ticket app. Thank you, Jeremy.
Stay with us, as next we're chatting to Theo Ancient. He's currently starring in The Shy Manifesto, which opens at the Greenwich Theatre tonight. First, though, let's have a listen to one of the songs that helped make The Phantom of the Opera one of the most iconic musicals of all time.